This video that you're watching now is the first in a series of videos that you're going to be watching about multiplication. The first one that you watched is the basics of multiplication, and it showed you different ways to show multiplication problems. This video is going to start with the commutative property of multiplication and what it says. The commutative property of multiplication says that it doesn't matter the order of the factors in a multiplication equation, your product will always be the same. So what does that mean? So let's look at factors and products. Definitions of the word factor. A factor is the number that's in an equation that you multiply together. So if I look down here at my example, I can see that 7 times 9 equals 63, and 7 and 9 are my factors because those are the numbers that I'm multiplying together. The product is the answer to a multiplication equation. So the correct way to say what's the answer would be what is the product. And the product of my equation 7 times 9 is 63. So if I go back and look at my definition now, the commutative property says that it doesn't matter the order of the factors, the product is always going to be the same. So that tells me I can switch the order of my factors, but my product is always going to be the same. So if we do multiplication, if we start at the beginning, the ones are easy. This one's easy. You ought to be able to get through this one on the first try. Any number times 1 is that number. 1 is the identity in multiplication. So this shows me the identity property of multiplication, that anything times 1 is that number. For example, 1 times 7 is 7. 1 times 9 is 9. 7 times 1 is 7. 9 times 1 is 9. And you can see here I have flipped the order of my factors, 1 and 7, but my product is the same. Both times I get 7. I flip the order of my factors in 1 times 9 to 9 times 1, but my product is still the same. So the ones are easy. Any number times 1 is going to give you that number. Moving on to the 2's. The 2's are pretty simple too, because you can just skip count by 2's or just double the number that you're multiplying by 2. So if I'm going to multiply 2 times 9, I'm going to get 18 because I know that 9 plus 9 is 18. So 2 times 9 is 18. And up here you can see, again, I have flipped the order of my factors, 2 and 9, and I've got 9 times 2 equals 18 because, again, it doesn't matter the order of the factors. I'm going to get the same product each time. Remember, the 2's are also simple because you can double, but you can also just skip count by 2's. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, etc. all the way up. And that's the easiest way to get to know your 2's in multiplication. So if we learn the ones, if we learn the 12 facts of 1, 1 times 1 through 1 times 12, and we learn 2 times 1 through 2 times 12, how many equations have we memorized? Well, let's look at our chart and see. So this is my 12 by 12 chart. And if I color in all that I have learned, I've learned my first row. I've learned all of my 1's. So I can color in those 12. But because of the commutative property, not only have I learned the first row that goes across, I've also learned the first column, because 1 times 2 is the same as 2 times 1. 1 times 3 is the same as 3 times 1. So all I've done here is reverse the order of my factors. So essentially, I've also memorized all of the facts in the first column. So instead of just having memorized 12, I've now actually memorized 23 of my basic facts. Well, we also talked about 2's were simple because it's just doubling or skip counting by 2. Well, I've already memorized 2 times 1, but I've also memorized this whole second row of basic multiplication facts. all the way through 12. But because of the commutative property, haven't I also memorized my second column? Because isn't 3 times 2 the same as 2 times 3? And 4 times 2 the same as 2 times 4? And 9 times 2 the same as 2 times 9? So again, not just the second row, but I've also memorized this whole second column. So very quickly you can see, by memorizing just a few at a time, I'm really going to be able to knock it out and learn all of my basic multiplication facts. Because if I look at this, not only have I memorized and learned my 1s and my 2s, I've got some of my 11s done, some of my 10s, some of my 9s. I've learned my 6s, some of my 7s, and some of my 8s. So by learning your 1s and 2s, because of the commutative property, you've also learned some of every other basic multiplication table.